Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what we're going to do is we're going to be setting up a Mongo database. So now we're kind of exiting using Express, and now we're going a little bit further and learning some other stuff. So that way we can kind of see how the beauty of using Express once we incorporate those things. So again, Mongo is a type of database, and in order to use Mongo in JavaScript, we need to connect to that database using a library called Mongoose. So we're going to install Mongoose, npm install Mongoose, and we're also going to want to install .env, which we'll come back to in a second. Okay, so we're going to install those two libraries. Goody good good. Okay, and now what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to create a .env file. .env. Now with the .env file, it's going to be a file that we put information we don't want to be pushing up to GitHub. Basically what's called environmental variables. We want these to be private. So, or any other variables we kind of want to be variable. Okay? And then these are going to get added to this process.env object. So right now the main variable that I want hidden is my MongoDB. Usually you do all caps for environmental variables, just kind of a convention. And I'm going to go look up the default local Mongo URI. Cool, that's what I'm looking for. So essentially when you install Mongo on your computer, you're going to end up with it's installed and you can use a URL like this to connect to it. But I need to look for the one that connects to localhost. Oh well, I can just change this myself. Okay. So essentially what happens, this is the URL. This MongoDB part tells it that this is for a MongoDB connection. This is going to be where the host is. So really it's being hosted on my computer, so it's localhost. The default port for Mongo is 27017. Unless you purposely changed it, that should be what it is. So basically it goes the protocol, because this goes for all databases, the protocol, the host, the port if there is one, okay, then slash the name of the database you want to connect to, okay. And sometimes you put a username and password in the URL, but since it's locally hosted, I don't have to do that. So I'm going to just call this testdb1. That's going to be the name of the database that we're working out of. And the beauty of Mongo is I don't have to create the database ahead of time. If it doesn't exist, it'll automatically add it as we work with it. So that's all I'm going to put in there for now in my .env. And I'm going to make a new folder called DB. The cool thing is having your database connections set up separately than in your server.js allows you to use it in different ways. So I create this folder called DNV, although I accidentally created a file. So let's see here, Intro to Express, create a folder, DB. Okay, and if I go to DB, I will make a new file, and this I'll call this, yeah, I guess I'll just call it db.js. And what this file is going to be is just going to allow us to connect to Mongoose, and I can import it whenever I need to connect to Mongoose. So, or Mongo. So we're going to bring in Mongoose, so const mongoose equals require Mongoose. I'm going to bring in my environmental variables, so require .env. And then when you require .env, you have to just run the function that kind of is attached to it, so config. And there we go. That will do the thing. And then from there, we just connect. Okay, so I'm just going to set up some variables. So const MongoDB URI. I'm going to destructure this out of process.env. Process.env, when this runs, it's going to add the variables to process.env. It's just a built-in object in Node. So I pull that out, process.env. Nice. And then it's just a matter of, I have this object I got to set up. It's called the config object. You can call it whatever you want. I just always call it the config object. It's really just this object. We're going to pass it into the connection function. It's just going to allow us to not have to worry about certain errors. So we just have to put like little things like use unified topology. That's the main one. And that's true. And there's another one you have to add, but I always forget. We'll see it when we connect. But then we will connect. And that's going to be mongoose.connect. And then we pass in the URL, so MongoDB URI, and then that we're connecting to, and then we pass in our config object. Cool. And what we want to do is do some logging. So that way, like, we connect to the database, it sends a message. If it disconnects with the database, it sends a message. If there's an error, it sends a message. So it's always a good thing to set that up. So the way we do this is in Mongoose, there is an object called connection. So mongoose.connection, and then we can chain events off of that. So we can do mongoose.connection.on, and then we can chain a bunch of events from there. So mongoose.connection.on, and first is when the connection goes open. When the connection is open, we just want them to console log. Console.log. You are connected to MongoDB. Okay, and then .on, when the connection is closed, we want it to console log. So you can chain these .ons together. The connection is closed. And the last one, .on error, we want the function will get past the error. So we just want to console.log the error. Okay, and we could actually do this just to make it look a little bit nicer. Doot. Doot. Okay, I'll save that so that way it can all get cleaned up. There we go. That looks a lot nicer. Okay, so cool. So those will be in there, and then I export the connection. So I'm going to export Mongoose. But I'm exporting a version of this object, this Mongoose object, that already has a connection. So it's module.exports. Module.exports. Cool. Okay. Oh, there should be an equal sign here. There we go. And then we can bring that into a server.js. So there's a connection. So const mongoose const mongoose equals require, but now I'm not requiring mongoose, I'm going to require the connection from that file. So /db/db. And then I'm also going to bring in my environmental variables here in case I need them later. Require .env .config. Cool. So save. So now when I start my server, I should see that I'm connected. npm run dev, and see we got connected to the DB. And then here's what I was saying. There's another thing we want to add to our config object. So I'm just going to copy that right here. Copy. go back to my DB connection, add that to my config object over here, use new URL parser, and see now I don't get that deprecation warning anymore. The deprecation warnings really don't affect anything, but it's nice not to have them. So that's why we want that config object. Cool, so we are connected to Mongo. Now we can start doing databasey things. And generally we define the things we're going to be doing on our database in our models file. Okay, so let's define a basic model. So new file. We'll call this, well actually usually we want to create a folder. Again, just for that nice organization. We'll call this dog. And in dog we'll have an index.js. Okay. And in dog, what we do is we import or const. We're going to destructure a few things from Mongoose. Mainly, we want something called the schema and a model. And we're going to pull that out of require Mongoose. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want. No, I think that's pretty good. Now the schema is going to be like a design of how our data is going to look like. So we say const dog schema equals a new schema. In the schema, we pass an object that describes what a dog looks like. So we'll just say a dog has a name, which is a string, and a dog has an age, which is a number. Okay, and then that's it. There's my schema. There's a lot more you can do with that. You can read the Mongo or Mongoose documentation as far as how to do more with schemas, but I'm going to keep it simple. Then we're going to create a model object, which allows us to apply the schema to a particular collection in our Mongo database. Const dog equals model, and we pass in a name of the collection that we want our database to save this information in. So we'll just call it dog, be the name of the collection, and information going in and out of that should be gone through the dog schema. So it'll always compare it, use this dog schema to validate information coming in and out of the dog collection in the database. Cool. And now that we've created this object, we can now export it. Module.exports equals dog. Okay, and now we can start creating routes that start doing stuff with this dog. Okay, neat. And to do that, that would be in our controller. So you're starting to see this whole models views controller thing. So we created our model, which is our dog model, and now we're going to create our controllers that handle the dog model. So we'll go to controllers, create a new folder called dog, and a new file in that one is called index.js. And in this file, we import the dog model. So we const dog equals require. So we have to go up to the main folder. Okay, models / dog. Okay, so that brings in the dog model. And then we also are going to need a router. So const, this time I'll destructure router. So I don't have to write 2 lines. Express. Okay, so this allows me to just pull a router into its own variable without me having to like put express in the express variable, for example, just to compare. Instead of me doing 2 lines like this, I can just do it all in 1 line. And then I make the router, const router equals router. Okay. And now I can start creating routes for dog. Okay, so we'll just create 2 routes real quick. Okay, a get route, get all dogs, which right now there's no dogs in the database. So this will be router dot get. This will be for / for dogs. Okay, and we're gonna do rec res. Okay, and the way this works is router.get rec res. we're going to do is get all dogs. So we're going to say const all dogs equals dog dot dog dot find. That's the function for Mongoose to find something inside the dog collection. And I'm just going to pass it an empty object, which just means find all dogs. Now this function returns a promise, so I'm not going to use a sync await, just to show you how to do it without having to use a sync await. And I'm going to store the promise in all dogs. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is that once all dogs, the all dogs promise completes, I'll say dot then, and what it's going to receive is the dogs. So I'll just say dogs. That's what it receives when the promise resolves. And what we're going to do is we'll just send the response of res.json dogs. So we'll send back all the dogs as JSON, and that's the extent of it. Okay, and just in case there's any errors, I'll put a dot catch there too. Dot catch, and catches catch the error in case the promise fails, and we'll just console.log the error. And then I'll save that. Cool. So that's that. But we also need to be able to make a dog. So create a dog. Create a dog. Okay, so router dot get. Nope. To create a dog, we want to do a post. So router dot post. And again, the verbs are convention. Like, you can do anything with any verb, but if you're looking to do this professionally, you want to follow conventions. So router dot post slash to create a dog, and we go to rec res. Okay, and then what's going to happen is that we're going to send some data via JSON, and that's going to show up in the rec body. So what we're going to do is just pass the rec body to create. So we're going to say const new dog. So we're going to create a new dog equals dog dot create, and the dog we're creating is whatever we're passing in from rec.body. Because again, we're going to submit that data directly through our route when we make the request. You'll see in a minute. And then what we're going to do is when new dog is created dot then, we will then take that dog and send it back. Res.json, and we're just going to send back the new dog as the response. Because again, we're creating an API. We're not creating a website quite yet. But there we have our two routes. Save. Okay. But the thing is that we have to import this controller now into our server.js. So we go to our server.js, just kind of like we imported the blog router. We're going to import the dog router. That's going to equal require dot slash controllers slash dog. And then we're going to go put the dog router down here, right next to our blog router, app.use, and the dog router will be used whenever we have a URL that starts with /dog and dog router. Neat. Okay, so that's the dog router. And it's giving me an error, so let's take a look in the terminal, see what's the error. So error router.use requires a middleware function, but okay, so that means, so that tells me that it didn't import fine. So let's go back to my router. Did I not export the router? I don't think I did actually, now that I think about it. Yep, I forgot to export the router. Module.exports equals router. Okay, so now that should be working. Yep, there we go. We're back in action. So let me go back to Postman. And let's try this out. First, let's create a dog. So that's a post request. And again, the URL is /dog. And in Postman, in order to put a request body, we're going to go to the body and hit raw, because we're sending over JSON data. So we select JSON. And JSON looks like a JavaScript object. So again, those two properties, it was name. And so that's going to be spot. comma, and then the other property was age in our schema. Again, it's got to match our schema. Okay, spot and age 4. Okay, so now I hit send, so it's sending this body. And there it goes. See, it created a new dog. And we can see, and we can confirm that it was a new dog because there's an ID number created from the database. Nice. Okay, and I can create another one. So we'll call it Rover. Okay, so now we got Rover as a new dog. Okay, nice. And then we'll just create one more. Buddy. Okay, so now if I change this to a get request on dog, now it should be getting me all the dogs. And see, it returns me an array of all the dogs. Okay, so this is how we start building out an API that we can then consume on a separate website. In that website, should be able to have access because we have that CORS middleware. So far, so good. Okay, with that, that wraps up this one. In the next video, so again, now we've seen that models, so where we kind of sketched out our database stuff. Controllers is our routes. The last piece would be to go actually build a website. So what we'll do is we'll create a separate React page, and build a basic front end. Okay, and I'll show you 2 ways to do that. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great one and enjoy.